The wind was sharp that evening, cutting across the broken edges of the alien settlement. The human, known only as Daniel, pulled his old jacket tighter around his shoulders. He had walked far, through the dust fields and rust-colored valleys, searching for shelter. The settlement looked half-abandoned, its buildings made of stone and strange green metal. Shadows flickered in the corners, as if the place itself was holding its breath. At first, he thought no one lived here. The streets were too quiet, the doors shut, the air heavy. But then he saw them, small figures hiding behind the walls. Alien children, thin and fragile, their eyes wide and glowing softly in the dim light. They did not come closer, only watched him with fear and hunger in their faces. Daniel slowed his steps, his boots echoing on the uneven ground. The children whispered among themselves in a language that clicked and hummed. He did not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. They were hungry, desperate, and too afraid to ask for help. His heart tightened, because he had seen that same look in human children during wars long ago. He knelt down, opening the small pack on his back. Inside he had dried bread, a few pieces of fruit, and some smoked meat. It was not much, but it was more than enough for these little ones. He broke the bread in half, holding it out with a gentle hand. The children did not move, their eyes darting to the shadows where older aliens might be watching. For a long moment, no one came closer. The silence pressed against his ears, making his heartbeat sound too loud. Then, one of the children, the smallest, stepped forward. Her skin shimmered faint blue under the fading sun. She trembled as she reached out her clawed fingers, snatching the bread. She backed away quickly, clutching the food to her chest. The others looked at her, then at Daniel, then at the bread. They began to shuffle forward, timid at first, then with more courage. Daniel smiled faintly, offering fruit, tearing meat into smaller pieces. Within moments, a circle of alien children surrounded him, eating quietly. He watched them, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. For the first time in weeks, he felt like his actions mattered. It was a simple act, feeding the hungry, but in their eyes, it was something more. Their gazes were filled not only with gratitude, but with awe. He felt as if he had crossed an invisible line, stepping into a world not meant for him. From the rooftops and doorways, adult aliens appeared. Their eyes glowed brighter than the children's, and their faces were unreadable. None of them spoke, but their silence was heavy with meaning. Daniel could feel their judgment pressing down on him. Yet none of them stopped him. None dragged the children away. The little girl who had taken the first piece of bread looked up at him. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper carried on the cold wind. "You gave us food, human," she said in broken English. Her words startled him, but her eyes held something deeper than fear. "They will come for you when night falls," she added, and the other children nodded. Daniel frowned, not sure what she meant. He wanted to ask, but the children only finished their food and slipped back into the shadows. The adults vanished too, as if they had never been there. Soon the streets were empty again, leaving him alone in the silent settlement. Only the echo of the girl's warning remained in his ears. Night was coming fast, the sky darkening to deep violet. The cold wind grew sharper, carrying with it a strange humming sound. Daniel looked around, uneasy, gripping the strap of his pack tightly. He had fed the children out of kindness, nothing more. But now he felt as if he had stepped into a story much larger than himself. As the last light of the sun slipped below the horizon, the ground beneath his feet vibrated faintly, like a heartbeat rising from the earth. The air smelled of metal and ash, and faint lights glowed along the edges of the settlement. He remembered the girl's words. "They will come for you when night falls." Daniel exhaled slowly, preparing himself for whatever waited in the dark. The settlement grew darker as night crept in. Daniel stood in the middle of the empty street, his breath clouding in the cold air. The children were gone, the doors shut, and yet he could feel unseen eyes following his every move. The silence was thick, broken only by the faint hum beneath the ground. It reminded him of machinery, or perhaps something alive, pulsing just below the surface. He moved carefully, his boots scraping against the rough stone. He thought about the warning the little girl had given him, and it stirred unease inside him. Why would feeding children bring danger? Why would kindness summon something at night? He wanted answers, but answers would not come easily here. The settlement carried a weight, as if every wall, every shadow, held secrets. From the far end of the street, a figure appeared. It was taller than the children, wrapped in dark robes with faint symbols glowing across the fabric. The alien's face was hidden beneath a mask of silver plates, but its voice carried sharp and clear. "Human, you should not have done this," the figure said. "Your gift of food breaks a law older than your world, and now you will be claimed." Daniel frowned, gripping the strap of his pack tighter. "I only gave them something to eat," he said, his voice steady, though his chest felt heavy. "They were starving. I could not just walk away." The robed alien tilted its head, the silver plates shifting with a metallic hiss. "Your mercy may cost you more than you imagine, human," it answered before vanishing back into the dark. Daniel felt the tension growing. From the rooftops, shapes shifted, silent and watchful. From the windows, pairs of glowing eyes glimmered. The alien adults were watching, their expressions unreadable, their silence worse than words. They did not step forward, but the weight of their stares pressed against him like chains. He thought about leaving, about walking out of the settlement before night fully came. But something inside him refused. He had faced worse than fear before, inhuman wars and lonely travels. And more than that, he could not forget the eyes of the children. They had looked at him with trust, and he would not betray that. Suddenly, a group of children appeared at the edge of the street. They looked around nervously, then ran to him, their small hands pulling at his coat. One of them, older than the rest, spoke in halting English. "You do not understand. Human, our people do not give food to the young. Never. It is forbidden." Daniel blinked in shock, staring at their thin faces. "Forbidden to feed children," he repeated slowly, struggling to believe it. The child nodded, his glowing eyes serious. "If someone feeds us, then the law of the night binds them. They must be repaid, always repaid." "What kind of repayment?" Daniel asked, his voice low. The children only exchanged nervous glances, and the little girl from before whispered, "At night, the gift comes, it always comes, and it cannot be refused." A chill went through him, though the night air was already cold. What kind of law demanded repayment for kindness? And what sort of gift could be so feared that even the adults warned him to leave? He tried to ask more, but the children shook their heads, backing away into the shadows again. Their silence felt heavier than answers. He walked through the settlement, trying to understand. Everywhere he turned, doors were shut, torches burned low, and whispers echoed from within. The adults did not approach him, but he could feel their suspicion, their distrust, their fear. To them, he was no savior, no kind wanderer. He was an intruder who had touched something sacred, something forbidden. Daniel sat on the edge of a crumbling stone fountain in the center of the square, his pack beside him, his eyes scanning the dark. He remembered the little girl's glowing face, her tiny hands clutching bread like treasure. That single moment of kindness had opened a door, but to what he could not know. The air thickened, the hum beneath the ground growing louder, like a drumbeat rising slowly. From the rooftops, a deep voice rumbled, carried by the wind. "You cannot leave now. Human, the night has chosen you." Daniel stood, his jaw set, his hands clenching unconsciously. He did not know what the night would bring, but he knew one thing. He would face it, not because he was fearless, but because those children had trusted him. The distrust of the alien adults weighed heavy. Their eyes followed him, full of warning and anger. But beneath that distrust, there was also something else, a flicker of expectation, as if they knew he was about to step into a trial no human had ever faced. Daniel exhaled slowly, his breath white against the night, and whispered to himself, "Whatever this law is, whatever comes, I'll see it through." The hum beneath the ground grew louder still. The torches flickered wildly, as if reacting to some unseen force. The children's warning echoed in his mind. The adult's silence pressed down like stone, and the night stretched before him, deep and endless, waiting to reveal its gift. The night air grew heavier, carrying a faint metallic taste that clung to Daniel's tongue. The alien settlement seemed alive now, every wall and stone humming with a rhythm he could not explain. It felt as though the ground itself was breathing, rising and falling with each pulse from below. He sat by the fountain, watching, waiting, unsure whether he was the hunter or the hunted. Then, a sound broke the silence, soft footsteps, light and quick. The alien children returned, slipping out from the shadows like silver ghosts. They gathered around him, their glowing eyes filled not with fear this time, but with something different. Trust, fragile and uncertain, but real enough to make his chest ache. The smallest girl stepped forward, clutching a strange trinket in her tiny hands. It was made of glass-like stone, shaped into a spiral that glowed faint blue. She held it out with trembling fingers, placing it gently in Daniel's palm. "This is for you," she whispered, "because you fed us, because you're not like the others." Daniel stared at the object, feeling its warmth against his skin. It was simple yet strange, humming faintly as though it contained a heartbeat of its own. He wanted to ask where it came from, but the children only smiled faintly. One of the older boys spoke in broken English, his voice filled with both pride and sadness. "When someone shows kindness, we must bind to them. It is our law, is our way." Daniel frowned, remembering the warnings of the adults. "But your elders fear this law," he said softly. "They don't want me here." The children lowered their heads, their small shoulders tense. "They fear the gift, not you," the boy answered. "They fear what the night brings, always the night." The bond was growing, invisible threads of connection weaving between him and these strange young ones. Daniel felt it in the way their eyes followed him, the way their voices softened when they spoke. It was not only gratitude, it was something deeper, something sacred. The little girl stepped closer, placing her hand against his arm, her skin cool and faintly glowing. "You belong to us now," she said simply, and the other children nodded. Her words sent a shiver down his spine, not from fear, but from the weight of what they meant. He was no longer just a wandering human offering bread to strangers. He had been pulled into their lives, into their law, into their night. He looked at the trinket in his hand again, the spiral pulsing like a tiny star. Somehow, he knew this was only the beginning of what they meant to give him. As the children sat around him, they began to hum softly. The sound was strange, layered, and haunting, filling the square with unearthly music. The air vibrated with their voices, the fountain water rippling though no wind touched it. Symbols on the ground flickered faintly, ancient runes glowing along the stones. Daniel watched in silence, caught between awe and unease. "You opened the law with food," the older boy said, his tone almost ceremonial. "Now the law will open itself to you. When the stars rise high, you will see." Daniel swallowed, his heart beating faster. He wanted to believe this was only ritual, some cultural tradition. But deep inside, he knew something far greater was unfolding before him. The children leaned against him, small bodies pressing close, seeking warmth and comfort. Their trust was absolute now, their fear replaced by a bond stronger than words. For a moment, Daniel felt at peace, as though he had found a family among strangers. It was strange, impossible even, but he could not deny the warmth in his chest. He thought of Earth, of children left behind in war-torn places, and his heart grew heavy with memory. The little girl looked up at him again, her eyes glowing like twin moons. "When night is deepest, the gift will come," she whispered. "You must not run. You must not refuse, because once the bond is made, it can never be broken." Her words echoed in his mind, heavy with both promise and warning. Daniel tightened his grip on the spiral trinket, knowing he had crossed a line he could never return from. Around them, the hum beneath the ground grew louder, steady and deep. The stars above seemed brighter, sharper, as though the sky itself was watching. The alien children held his hands, their small fingers wrapping tightly around his. And for the first time in years, Daniel felt something rare. He felt needed. The bond had been sealed, and whatever gift the night promised, it was already on its way. The night deepened, and with it came a strange stillness. The stars above the alien settlement shone like sharp needles, brighter than Daniel had ever seen. The hum beneath the ground pulsed louder, steady like a heartbeat, and every pulse made the stone walls tremble faintly. The children clung to him, whispering in their own language, but even their voices carried unease. Daniel felt the bond between them growing stronger, but with it came an invisible weight. The trinket in his hand, the spiral-shaped stone, grew warmer with every passing minute. It seemed alive, glowing faintly as if responding to the vibrations beneath his feet. He turned it over, studying the strange patterns carved into its surface, but the markings were unreadable. Then the silence broke. From the far edge of the square, heavy footsteps echoed. Daniel lifted his head to see 3 tall, alien elders emerging from the shadows. Their skin shimmered with faint light, and their robes were covered in silver symbols that pulsed in rhythm with the ground. Their eyes burned with caution, suspicion, and something darker, fear. One of them raised a hand, and the children quickly backed away, hiding behind Daniel. The elder's voice was deep, heavy with age and authority. "Human, you were warned. You should not have fed them. You do not understand what you have begun." Daniel stood his ground, though his chest tightened. "I only gave them food," he replied firmly. "They were starving. I could not ignore them." The second elder shook his head slowly, his eyes glowing like fire in the dark. "Mercy is not forbidden, but mercy has a price, and here that price is written in the law of night." The third elder stepped closer, his long fingers pointing toward Daniel. "You are bound now, bound by the bond of the young. When the hour comes, the gift will be given, and it cannot be refused." Daniel clenched his jaw, feeling the weight of their words. "What gift?" he demanded. "What is it you fear so much?" But the elders only exchanged glances, their silence louder than answers. One of them finally spoke again, his tone sharp and final. "Leave before the stars reach their highest point, or what follows will mark you forever." With that, they turned and vanished into the shadows, their glowing robes fading like smoke. The children rushed back to Daniel, their small hands gripping his arms tightly. "Do not listen," the little girl whispered, her voice trembling. "The gift is not to be feared, it is to be honored." Her words clashed with the elders' warnings, leaving Daniel caught between 2 truths, one filled with dread, the other with hope. The air grew colder, the torches flickering wildly though there was no wind. Symbols on the stones beneath Daniel's feet glowed faintly, pulsing in rhythm with the spiral in his hand. The hum beneath the ground rose, deeper and heavier, shaking the square like a drumbeat from the earth's heart. Daniel glanced at the children, their eyes glowing brighter now, their voices whispering promises he could not understand. And then he noticed something else. From the edges of the settlement, dozens of alien adults gathered, watching silently. They stood in doorways, on rooftops, along broken walls, their faces hidden by shadows, their eyes burning in the dark. They did not move closer, did not speak, but their presence filled the square with an almost unbearable tension. It felt like a trial, as if they were waiting for something to happen, something ancient and inevitable. Daniel swallowed hard, his throat dry. Every instinct told him to run, to leave the settlement before the hour came. But when he looked at the children, fragile, glowing, holding on to him with desperate trust, He knew he could not abandon them. Whatever was coming, he would face it with them, not against them. That was the bond, and the bond could not be broken. The little girl leaned close, her small voice carrying both comfort and fear. When the stars are highest, the law will come, and you will see what no human has seen. Daniel tightened his grip on the spiral trinket, its glow pulsing with his heartbeat. The elder's warning echoed in his mind, but the children's trust burned brighter in his chest. He chose to stay, though he knew staying might change him forever. Above, the stars climbed higher, sharper, cutting through the endless sky. The hum beneath the ground grew into a steady roar, vibrating through his bones. And all around him, the alien settlement held its breath, waiting for the night to reveal its gift. Daniel exhaled slowly, whispering into the silence. Whatever comes, I will face it. The sky had turned black, endless and sharp, filled with stars that burned brighter than fire. Daniel stood in the square, the spiral trinket glowing faintly in his hand. The hum beneath the ground had grown into a steady roar, deep and heavy, shaking the stones under his boots. It was no longer background noise. It was alive, it was calling. The alien children circled him, their eyes glowing brighter than before, their voices humming softly. They sang in tones that overlapped, strange and haunting, a sound that pulled at his chest. Each note seemed to stir the symbols carved into the stone. The runes around the fountain shimmered with pale light, pulsing in rhythm with the children's song. From the shadows, the adults gathered again, silent and still. They filled the edges of the square, lining rooftops and broken walls. Their faces unreadable, their glowing eyes fixed on Daniel and the children. It felt like a trial, a ceremony, and a warning all at once. The little girl, the one who had first taken his bread, stepped into the center of the circle. Her small hands lifted toward the sky, her voice rising above the others. By law of night, by bond of young, the gift must be given, she whispered. The words sent a chill through Daniel's bones. The ground pulsed harder, almost like a heartbeat beneath his feet. The spiral stone in his hand grew hot, glowing with a fierce blue light. He almost dropped it, but the children's voices grew louder, urging him to hold on. He could feel it vibrating, alive, as though something inside was awakening. When he looked at the children, their forms shimmered, their bodies outlined with faint starlight. It was as if they were becoming something more than flesh, something connected to the sky itself. Daniel's breathing quickened, his pulse racing. He wanted to ask what was happening, but the air itself silenced him. It felt thick, charged, every breath heavy with energy he could not explain. The fountain water began to rise, defying gravity, curling upward in twisting streams of light. Symbols glowed brighter, burning across the stone floor like living fire. The children stepped forward, their small hands reaching for him. When their fingers touched his skin, warmth flooded through his veins. It was not pain, but a rush of power, energy that made his heart race faster. He felt their memories, their hunger, their hopes, flowing into him like a tide. For a moment, he was no longer only human. He was part of them, and they were part of him. From the crowd of adults, a voice shouted, deep and terrified, "Do not accept it, human. Refuse it, or you will never be the same." But the children's voices rose higher, drowning the warning in their haunting song. The little girl looked into Daniel's eyes, her gaze steady and glowing. "You gave us life. Now we give you truth," she said, her voice trembling but sure. The spiral stone in his hand cracked open, light bursting outward like a star. Daniel staggered back, shielding his eyes, but the children held onto him tightly. The light rose into the sky, piercing the blackness, making the stars blaze brighter. A beam of energy shot upward, connecting earth to sky. The ground shook so hard he thought the settlement might collapse. The adults bowed their heads, silent and trembling. Some turned away in fear. Others watched with tears in their glowing eyes. This was no ordinary ritual. This was something ancient, something cosmic. Daniel could feel it in his bones, in the way the air pressed against his chest. He was part of a moment no human was meant to see. The children's song reached its peak, voices sharp and beautiful. Their bodies glowed fully now, no longer only alien flesh, but beings of starlight. They raised their hands together, and the beam of light split, pouring into the spiral stone. Daniel felt his body tremble, his knees almost buckling under the weight of it. Yet he did not let go. He could not let go. At last, the light dimmed, the hum beneath the ground fading into silence. The fountain water settled, the runes cooling back to faint stone. The children released him, their eyes glowing faintly, their small faces tired but peaceful. The spiral stone in his hand was no longer cracked, but whole again. Now it glowed faintly with an inner fire, pulsing in time with his own heartbeat. The little girl stepped forward, her voice soft and clear. "It is done. Human, you carry the gift now." Daniel stared at the stone, his chest rising and falling quickly. He wanted to speak, to ask what this gift truly was. But no words came, only silence, only awe, only the heavy weight of the unknown. The square was silent after the ritual. The stars above seemed brighter, watching with cold eyes. The spiral stone in Daniel's hand pulsed faintly, alive, its light beating in rhythm with his own heart. The children stood around him, glowing softly, their small bodies trembling with exhaustion. Daniel felt dizzy, as though part of him had been stretched beyond his own body. The energy from the ritual still ran through his veins, making his chest tighten with every breath. He looked at the children, their glowing faces calm, their eyes filled with something he could not name. It was not gratitude, not joy. It was something deeper, almost reverence. The little girl stepped closer, her voice soft but steady. "You carry it now, the gift of night, the gift of bond," she whispered. Daniel looked down at the stone, its glow faint but steady. "What is it?" he asked, his voice low. "What have you given me?" Before she could answer, the elders appeared again, stepping out from the shadows. Their glowing robes shimmered, their faces grim, their eyes sharp with fear. One of them raised a hand, pointing at Daniel, his voice shaking. "He holds a core. He holds what no human should touch. Take it from him before it is too late." The children cried out, rushing in front of Daniel, their small bodies forming a shield. "No," the little girl shouted, her voice clear. "He earned it. He fed us. He is bound by law." The elders froze, their faces darkening. The air between the two groups crackled with tension. It was not simply fear. It was a war of belief, of tradition, of destiny. Daniel tightened his grip on the spiral stone. He could feel its warmth spreading through his chest, crawling up his arms, filling his mind with visions. For a moment, he saw flashes, stars exploding in the void, strange worlds blooming with alien forests, oceans rising over black continents. He saw faces, alien and human, woven together in patterns he could not understand. The visions left him breathless, his knees weak. "What is this?" he whispered, clutching his head. The little girl touched his arm, steadying him with her small, glowing hand. "It is memory," she said softly, "the memory of our people, the memory of the stars, and now it lives in you." Daniel's eyes widened, his breath catching. "You gave me your history," he said slowly, "your knowledge." The elder stepped forward, his voice sharp and heavy. "Not just history, human. The gift carries more than memory. It carries power, it carries weight, and no human can bear it without change." Daniel stared at him, his heart pounding. "What kind of change?" he asked, his voice rough. But the elder only looked away, refusing to answer. The children pressed closer, their voices rising in protest. "He can carry it. He is not like the others. He is strong. He is kind," they cried. The little girl's eyes met Daniel's, glowing like twin stars. "You fed us when no one else would. The law says we must give you the gift, and now you are one of us." Her words struck him like a blade. One of us. Daniel looked at the adults, their fear deep and unspoken. He looked at the children, their trust shining brighter than the stars. And then he looked down at the spiral stone, glowing faintly in his hand. It pulsed once more, and suddenly he felt it, something awakening inside him. His senses stretched outward, hearing whispers he should not hear, feeling the weight of the night sky pressing against him. The world shifted, sharper, brighter, filled with threads of light connecting everything. Every star above, every stone beneath, every breath of the children, they were all linked. He gasped, his vision blurring with brilliance. For a moment, he saw himself not as a human, but as part of something vast, something infinite. The bond was not only between him and the children, but between him and the universe itself. The elders stepped back, fear etched into their glowing faces. He has touched it, one of them whispered. He is no longer only human. Daniel staggered, gripping the stone tighter, his voice shaking. "What am I now?" he asked. His question carried on the wind. The little girl answered simply, her voice like a promise. "You are chosen, you are guardian, you are bound forever." The words echoed in the silent square. The adults bowed their heads, unwilling to meet his gaze. The children clung to him, glowing softly, their trust unbroken. And Daniel stood there, speechless, the spiral stone pulsing in his hand. He had come to this place as a wanderer, a stranger with nothing but scraps of food. Now he carried a gift that could change not only him, but perhaps all of humanity. The square was quiet, but it was not the silence of peace. It was the silence after a storm, the kind that made every sound sharper, heavier, alive. Daniel stood in the center, the spiral stone glowing faintly in his palm. Its light pulsed with his heartbeat, steady, certain, as if it belonged to him now. The children gathered close, their glowing eyes fixed on him. They were tired, their small bodies trembling from the ritual, but their trust in him had not faded. They whispered softly in their own language, words he could not understand, but somehow felt. Their voices warmed him, yet at the same time, they carried weight, a sense of finality. The adults, however, stood at the edges of the square, watching silent and tense. Their faces were unreadable, their eyes glowing faint with distrust, with fear, with something close to grief. They did not approach, did not speak, but their presence was heavy. It was clear that in their eyes, the law had been followed, but the cost was greater than they wished to bear. Daniel's chest rose and fell as he tried to steady himself. He had seen visions, felt energies he could not explain, touched knowledge no human had ever held. But he was still himself, or at least he thought he was. The warmth in his veins told him otherwise. Something inside him was different, something had shifted, and there's no going back. He lifted his gaze to the little girl, the one who had first taken bread from his hands. She looked up at him with glowing eyes, her voice soft but unshaken. "You are guardian now," she whispered. "The bond has chosen you, and the gift will grow." Daniel frowned, gripping the stone tighter. "What will it grow into?" he asked, his voice carrying both fear and wonder. But the girl only shook her head. "No one can know, not even us," she said. "The gift changes with the one who holds it." The words struck him hard. The gift was not just knowledge or power. It was something living, something bound to his very being. It would grow with him, shape him, and perhaps reshape everything he touched. His jaw tightened as he realized the truth. This was not only his fate, it was humanity's fate. For he carried their bond now, and bonds could not be broken. The elders stepped forward slowly, their voices heavy. "You are no longer only human," one of them said. "The gift has marked you, and it will mark your people." Daniel narrowed his eyes, his voice steady. "Then it is not only my burden, it is theirs as well." The elder nodded, his gaze grim. "You will return to your kind, carrying the seed of stars, and whether it brings light or ruin will depend on you." The words echoed in the cold night. The children pressed closer, their trust shining brighter than the stars above. The adults bowed their heads, reluctant but bound by their law. Daniel stood in the center of it all, his hand tight around the glowing stone. He was no longer a wanderer, no longer a man lost among strange worlds. He was bound, chosen, burdened with a gift he could not refuse. The ground beneath him rumbled once more, a low pulse fading into silence. The runes on the stones flickered faintly, then dimmed, leaving only the pale light of the stars. The ritual was over, but the weight of what had happened pressed down like iron. Daniel exhaled slowly, his voice a whisper carried on the wind. "What have I done?" The little girl reached for his hand, her small fingers brushing his. "You did what no one else would," she said, her voice steady. "You fed us, you cared, and now you carry us with you." Her words were soft, but they struck deeper than any warning. Daniel felt the bond within him, alive, unbreakable, stretching outward to the stars. The spiral stone pulsed once more, and the visions returned. This time he saw not only alien worlds, but Earth, his Earth, shrouded in starlight, waiting. He staggered, his chest tightening, his thoughts spinning. Was this a blessing or a curse? Would this gift lift humanity into the stars, or drag it into ruin? He had no answers, only the weight of the unknown pressing against him. And in that moment, he understood he was standing at the edge of something vast, something final. The children's voices rose softly, a promise carried in song. The adults bowed in silence, unwilling to speak. The stars burned above, sharp and endless. And Daniel stood there, speechless, the spiral stone glowing in his hand. A wanderer no more, but a guardian bound forever. A man marked not only by kindness, but by the law of night.